Welcome back to the MSU Federal Credit Union Coaches Show.
After stunning Purdue last year with his last-second game-winning shot, history did not repeat itself this year for Tyson Walker. However, he did become the first player since Cassius Winston to score 30 points in a game. It was one of the positives Tom Izzo took away from the one-point loss to the Boilermakers, because right afterwards he was not pleased one bit, and it led to him doing something he rarely ever does. Usually after a game, a loss, maybe like you had to Purdue, you would stay here for hours and maybe go over film and then prep for the next opponent and have your staff do the same thing. But you took a different approach after the Purdue game.
Well, I still watched some film. I went home and watched some film, but I sent my staff home. I mean, it has been a grind in those, 4 games in 10 days. And the prep to those games, they were all separate preps. They were all first-time plays, which wouldn't mean anything to a lot of people, but it means the world to us. So I told them all to get out of here, and I went home, and I've got to sit up at home.
What do you learn each time you watch a game over?
We had a very poor start. We have a theory around here which starts bad, ends bad. And we almost bounced back from it, but a 13-point deficit for no reason. We looked uncharacteristically uneasy. What we showed after that was incredible. I thought the hardest we've maybe played in years. Thought the arena was more electric than it's been in years. I think there were so many positives on Martin Luther King Day, and that's what my message to the players. You can make mistakes, you can take a bad shot, you can do this, you can do that, but our margin for error, especially with Malik out, is just not as good. So we learned something. Memory-making moments are usually positives. Miles hits the 3 against Purdue.
Just has it, 5 seconds to go. Bridges for 3. Yes! The big star delivers.
Gonzalez, he's texted me last night, hits the big shot against Ohio State. Those are memory-making moments that you think about. But you can learn from negative memory makers too. And that's what I told my guys we got to do.
Is that part of why after the game too, you mentioned you had a dream, but it turned into
a nightmare? Yeah, we listened to Dr. Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream speech. And, and I thought it was very apropos. We cut it up about 4 minutes and showed our team it for a lot of reasons. But as I was watching it, I was thinking to myself, everybody gets opportunities in life. And that was an opportunity. You want to try to tell a 20-year-old that there's only so many opportunities you get. And yet, when you have a lifetime ahead of you, you always think those opportunities are abundant. And they're not.
You mentioned too to Ishbia, Matt Ishbia, as he's sitting in his courtside seats that he has now these days, did this remind you of when you were here, and what was his reaction to that?
He said it's electric. Place was electric. There's always been good crowds here, but for some reason, maybe it was the game, the hype, maybe it was the 2:30 start on Martin Luther King Day. Whatever it was at a notch above. And so I said that to him during the game. I said, man, it's like old times, huh? I also told him he picked the right profession. I said, good thing you didn't stay in coaching. Look at this.
Well, yeah, speaking of that too, because his Phoenix Suns and Phoenix Mercury is about to be official this week, actually. So for him to be able to purchase an NBA franchise, what do you think about that?
I think it's awesome. It's his dream. He wanted to own a pro football franchise, a pro sports franchise. He looked at football, looked at basketball. He wanted to own a. And I can't think of a better guy, a more driven guy. He'll be an owner that it won't be a toy to him like some owners. He'll be an on-hands guy that will, he'll drive them, man. I'm excitingly looking forward to seeing what he does and how he does it, because he's a very driven human being. And as I tell my players, when you're driven in something, you're usually driven in everything.
Do you remember, when he was playing here, did he did he already have those dreams and aspirations, or when did you maybe start to see that he was going to be pretty successful in life?
Well, I knew he was driven as a player because I watched him compete against Mateen every day, and he had no business competing against them physically. Then I realized that, didn't know he'd be in sports, didn't know he'd be in the mortgage business, but just what I just told you, I believe. It didn't matter if he was in Tiddlywinks, he was going to be the best Tiddlywinks player, He is a very driven, very focused, very principled human being. Did I think he'd buy a team? No, I didn't think in any way, shape, or form. I was hoping he kept his little 300-400 person company and just kind of kept growing. But Matt has exceeded my expectations, and it's always fun when you exceed your expectations instead of fall short of them.
I think if he could, he would probably name the whole campus, university, certain buildings after you, obviously the football building with your name on it. When he comes forward to you and asks you about these things, or does he tell you, or how do these conversations come to be, when you did find out that the football building was going to be in your name and that's directly what he wanted it to be?
Humbling, exciting. Why? He gives me all this credit. I mean, I couldn't deal with a mortgage company. I wouldn't know where to even start. So I have nothing to do directly with what he does, but in his mind, I had a lot to do indirectly. But so did my assistant coaches, the players he played with. All those things are all part of the process, as we talk about here a lot, which nobody wants to go through the process. And we all get breaks in life. You got one, I got one. Are you ready to move forward when you get that break? And I think people that are driven are usually ready to move forward. He was, and he gave me the honor of being included in his success.
Embracing opportunities and being ready for them was a key topic of conversation for the Spartans this week, if you couldn't tell, and it really applies to one player in particular. With Malik Hall out, Izzo now turns to Pierre Brooks to absorb his minutes, and on Sunday at Indiana, he'll also be relying on him to provide some pop on both ends of the floor. It's what MSU gymnast Gabby Stephen hopes to do, only back here in East Lansing on Sunday against rival Michigan, and you're going to hear from her next when the MSU Federal Credit Union Coaches Show returns.